You know the story that we got when we were kids, that your ancestor was out on one Sunday with his girlfriend and some white man jumps out of the bush and throws a net over him? It's not how it happened. Slavery was big business. Africans sold to other Africans.
But the memory of slavery and of what our ancestors must have gone through is always lurking. Even a pretty little harbor town like Elmina is dominated by its slave castle. And for us, a slave castle is like Auschwitz.
Right in here. This very dungeon housed between 150 and 200 women for 3 good months. This is where they slept, yes, but the place was much overcrowded, so there wasn't enough space for one even to lie down. The result was an outbreak of malaria and yellow fever. So by the time the ships arrived, more than half were already dead. Well, this is the infamous room of no return. That is also the door of no return. While the slaves got here, they never knew where they were going. Neither did they know what was going to happen to them. All they knew was to get out of this room onto the boats. Some actually committed suicide, because that was the only way they thought they could get their freedom. In fact, it was the Africans who did the raiding and selling of Africans to the Europeans. No European ever went into the hinterland to raid for slaves. It was the Africans who did it. And before the Europeans even landed here, slavery was already in the system. It was slaves that worked in the palaces for the kings.
I thought it was more, even at that time, than just money. It had to be just something else that drove them to just kill these people.
Yeah, why brutalize them like that?
I brutalize. But then again, I guess that's justification on rationalization. If you brutalize it, then you have to say to yourself, there's no way we as a Christian people could brutalize other humans, so they can't be humans.
But did it surprise you to find out that Africans were involved as well as middlemen?
I knew that Africans were involved. I didn't know the extent to what they were involved. And I also didn't know that once they found out what was going on here, and I know that they had to know what was going on here, that they stayed a willing participant in it. That's the crazy part of it.
I think I was surprised and hurt and angry and everything, because, these were people that, I sort of had a fantasy about them and as our ancestors, and your ancestors don't sell you. So that fantasy was sort of blown away. And
the dirtiest secret in African American history is that a surprisingly high percentage of the free Negroes in the South own slaves themselves. And some of them own, we explain it away by saying, oh, but they only own their mother, or they only own, they own their mother, they own their sister, they own their wife, and they own some other workers too. A surprisingly high number owned workers who they did not liberate.
Look at this. We're going to go to Africa. According to PBS, we're going to go right down here. PBS Africans in America Series Companion Book. And here's some more sources. Been missing out on those. Here's some more sources. Africans in America, PBS 1998, Wonders of the African World, PBS 1999, and the African Trade History Channel International 2000. Just to give you some places where you can go to find some more of this information. But what we'll go straight to, more than 20 million Africans would be kidnapped in their own homeland. It's especially to show you Africans were enslaving Africans.
yeah.
But you know what's crazy? We ain't gonna go there. Let's keep going. We ain't gonna go there. And they did it in the Congo. In fact, the Congo set it off with the Portuguese. Because Prince Henry did, like Spain did with Christopher Columbus and funded a mission because they got tired of the middleman when they was getting salt and gold from the Moors, and they said, man, it's building our economy, we're going to find a direct route to West Africa. Let's fund some missions in our endeavor to find out how can we get it. When they came, they wound up being able to get slaves from black people from Mauritania. They found out these black slaves were way more stronger than their white slaves. The white people was enslaving white people up in Europe. This was in the 1400s. About 1444, the Dutch started coming in. The Spanish started coming in because black people were selling to all of them. But don't worry, we got some references for you. Look at my man, Olada, Akuyana. He was kidnapped at the age of 11 and sold to Nigerian slave masters, black slave masters, as an indentured slave, then later sold again and later on purchased his freedom from work in Britain. This is the book called Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olada Akuyana, or Gustavo Esparza, the African. It was first published in 1789 and considered the first influential slave autobiography in Britain. This is a book from a slave that was kidnapped by black people, then sold to black people. This is a direct elaboration on a slave's account of being enslaved by black people. Let's go next. Woo! And people don't like this. Here's another black man that was enslaved by his own people. I'm not giving you white people's accounts. I'm giving you black men's accounts of what took place on those slave ships. Some of those images you hang up is an end result of black people selling black people to black people that sold them to white people. The slaves wrote it themselves. We ain't gonna be picky and choosy, cause I ain't bring no white man's account. Y'all ain't gonna let me get with that. So now something wrong with the slave for telling the truth about what black people did to them? Tell the truth. You know why this shit went on in Africa? Same reason why shit going on over here today. We either blood or we crip. We Hebrew Islam and Sunni Muslim. We ancient Egyptian and we can't respect each other's culture. We gotta tell each other that. Same shit in Africa. We got scars here, we got big lips over here, we got the big ears over here. In search for an identity that is exclusive, we become so ethnocentric, we start imposing life on other people. So because we're trying to differentiate ourselves from each other, we didn't even see each other as part of the same race, more or less, because we're from different tribes. It's that tribal shit. It's that blood crip shit. It's that Hebrew Israelite, BPC, Black Panther, not to say that they advocate that ignorance. It's to say sometimes people get so caught up in their own cultural identity and insecurity, they gotta put other people's culture down. So here's a slave's account. We'll read through a bit of it. But when the vessel arrived, this is Oldaba, Kugana, slave wrote it. Just like the other slave book. Look at the white man's a publisher. Can't win. But when the vessel arrived to conduct us away to the ship, it was the most horrible scene. Listen to this. Because we was told what happened on the slave ship. But this time around, you're going to be told it coming from a brother who on the ship, the beaters, the cracker was the black people. I got some shit to show you in the book. In the book, I got a slave master that had white house niggas watching black people. So you call the people house niggas, that don't mean it's limited to black people. And these are slave accounts. Why would the white man teach you that he alone enslaved you? He alone was able to enslave you in Africa. He alone was able to bring you to Brazil, no problem. The second highest population of African Americans. He alone was able to come to America and enslave you. Why do you suppose he has to teach you this? Why don't he give his fellow African demon the credit? Because he has to enforce a fiction to you. White supremacy is a fiction. It don't even exist. If he lets you know that you participated in your own demise, then you will have confirmation that you can come up and it's not that difficult. All you have to do is stop trying to bring each other down. So he has to teach you that I did this, so he can embed fear into your psychology. He's teaching you, D-boy, to let you know black people had a hand in it. So you can get scared, because the shit's scary. shit off like that. He just came in Africa and just took niggas and nobody was their gun, but they left. And so much of us, them niggas could have lost their eyes after a while. He didn't just come there, he has to embed fear into your psychology. A lot of his power don't even exist. So here we go. He only has the power that we gave him. So white supremacy don't exist, and he learned a lot of this weird and wacky shit from us. Believe it or not. He learned a lot of stuff. If you go to Nation of Islam lessons, they don't say Yaqub is a original black man. And he's the father of the devil. Say a word, they don't say that. So if the black man is the father of the devil, and it also says in the lessons, say a word, they don't say in the lessons that he had to teach the devil devilishment. So if he had to teach the devil devilishment, it's almost a subtle conviction that white was right until black people taught it wrong. Think about it. I forgot to name this infernal fork, the ship that the slave master was on. I mean the slave brother. But we were taken in a ship that came for us to another that was ready to sail from Cape Coast. When we were put into the ship, we saw several black merchants. Black merchants, these were the slave buyers, the people that purchased. This ship was filled with black people. What you think? America just had free blacks and none of them was getting in on slavery? Like, what are you thinking? Niggas was just walking around free, just by chance, watching other black people be enslaved. How does that work and they don't get offended unless it's part of it? Something I ask my Morris community all the time. There's some skeletons in our closet. If we don't identify it, we're going to be likely to do it again. If giving or being put in a position of power, we will use it again. And when we found ourselves at last taken away, death was more preferable than life. And the plan was concerted amongst us that we might burn and blow up the ship and to perish altogether in the flames, but we were betrayed by one of our own, a countrywoman who slept with some of the headmen of the ship. I'm gonna go down. But it would be needless to give a description of all the horrible scenes which we saw and the base treatment which we met with in this dreadful captive situation, as the similar cases of thousands which suffer by this infernal traffic are well known. Let's go next one. This should get intense right here. You should get the book. Because if you rely on white people to sell you the story about slavery, if you should have questioned, why is this white man being so honest about beating up the Native Americans, shooting us down? Why is he teaching us so much of this? Because he's trying to induce fear into you. Make you think he do it all by himself. He almighty, all powerful. I don't need no niggas to take him down. I do it all by myself. I ain't gonna give nobody credit for this, so they can fear me. If they don't fear me, I can't have power. So look at this. This Lord of hosts, his great providence. We're gonna go down where the brother says, but I escaped better than many of them, for eating a piece of sugar cane. Some were cruelly lashed or struck over the face to knock their teeth out. He survived the ship, eating pieces of sugar cane that broke off because someone was whipping the hell out of other black people. Black people was whipping black people so bad, pieces of sugar cane was falling off, and that's what he lived off of. Read it. He watched people get chopped up. Black people chopping up black people so the rest of them could be scared. So nobody play gangster on the shit. Read it. This is us. That shit is treasonous. If you can sell your own people into slavery, that's worse than a white man enslaving us. What kind of monster is this? It's inside of us. It's constantly making us point at other people. But I must own to the same shame of my countrymen that I was first kidnapped and betrayed by some of my own complexion who were the first cause of my exile and slavery. I got the book here with me too. The following content comes from the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, page 37, Purpose of Creation. The man or woman who has no confidence in self is an unfortunate being and is really a misfit in creation. God Almighty created each and every one of us for a place in the world, and for the least of us to think that we were created only to be what we are and not what we can make ourselves is to impute an improper motive to the Creator for creating us. God Almighty created us all to be free. That the Negro race became a race of slaves was not the fault of God Almighty, the divine master. It was the fault of the race. He said the reason why we were slaves was the fault